There are a lot of things that young people want right now, but the Tories aren't interested in that. They're focused on what they need. No, that's not cheaper housing or better jobs, but good old fashioned discipline from national service, according to ex magician's assistant, former Splash contestant, and once Navy reservist, leader of the House of Commons, Penny Mordaunt. Ros, the headlines all said national service, but strictly speaking, that's just not what this is it? What's she talking about?
No, it's not national service in the sense that we understood it. I
Yeah.
mean, it was brought in 1949, national service for all men, only men, and it lasted 18 months, and you basically had to join one of the forces, one of the three forces, and serve there, unless I think you were a conscientious objector, in which case you could opt out and do something peaceful instead. But most people did the military option. And of course, it was relatively soon after the war. There was a feeling, the strong feeling that that was still hanging over people, and they could understand the reason why you might need a standing force of men ready to fight, or in the event of war. So this is a different thing that they're actually suggesting, though they like to call it national service because for the nostalgia value. It's a voluntary scheme essentially. So you would be enrolled in it is the proposal, but you could opt out, a bit like with pensions at the moment. It's not auto enrollment, but you can say no if you want to,
Yeah.
and it
And like
would
with organs as well.
yeah,
Your organ
exactly,
donations when you
yeah,
die, it's nudge
yeah.
theory too, isn't it?
It's a nudge thing. Um, it would be a mix of military and civic service. So you'll get to choose whether you wanted to do boot camp or whether you wanted to work in a hospital or care home or kids or, environmental projects, that kind of things. And it wouldn't be 18 months. It would probably be about 6.
So the suggestion came largely from the Onward think tank, and its head honcho, Sebastian Better Look Next Time You Try to Become a Tory MP, Payne, wrote that young people are unhappy, unskilled. That was quite snipey of me, wasn't it? But unhappy, unskilled, and unmoored. Was there a point in what he was saying, though? Do you agree in to some extent?
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of truth to it. As a 48-year-old, I hesitate to pronounce on the condition of young people now. It would be quite patronizing for me to do so, and it does come across that way. But we do know that mental health problems among young people are widespread, and I see that among, my kids' generation, partly through NHS failures and the collapse of CAMS, the mental health services. Partly, I think, the effect of lockdowns, partly the effect of social media that has on some people, partly academic pressures, all these kind of perfect storm of things. And these, of course, are all things that the government could have chosen to prioritise in the past and did not.
Yeah.
So, but let's be clear, though, that virtually every generation is seen as problematic
Yeah.
by its elders. This is a recurring pattern in politics. So you have to ask, what are the particular problems of this one, and would they be fixed by some form of national service? Now, I'm actually quite in favour, which might surprise some people, of a voluntary scheme like this. I think it definitely has things to recommend it. That said, it won't happen because, let's face it, we live in a country where, as we've just discussed, the ceilings are falling in and we can't do the simplest thing. So the chances of us being able to arrange a national service for 500,000 young people every year are very small, certainly at the moment. But it would be a nice to have.
Yeah, that feels to me the only way to actually frame this would be that you genuinely believe it is a good thing for the young people involved and not a sort of solving the problem of young people
Yeah,
for the rest of society and
yeah.
making that work. And I don't believe this government, I've never really got I'm 30, I'm not sort of as young as it would be to be on this scheme, but I've never got the feeling that they've cared about me
Yeah.
at any point.
And that's a really important point, actually. I think it's really important to give young people something that is not just pass these exams or your future is screwed.
Yeah.
And that's basically what you do at the moment. It's get through school. And there's nothing else on offer unless you are rich enough to, arrange your own gap year or
Yeah.
sort that kind of thing out. There's no nudge that says, yeah, this is something we can do. This is, you could go and live in another part of the country for a while. You can do something and we will pay you, which will be really important. It's important that people get paid for this and it isn't some, completely like no money. We will pay you and we will respect what you do and we will organize it properly. And that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I took a year out after college and I worked at a, let's leave it unnamed, but famously messy, quite cheap, very big clothes retailer for a little while. So guess who that was? But I did that for a year, sort of part time, just because I purely didn't feel quite ready to go to university at that point. And it would
Mm.
have been quite nice to have maybe done something. I made friends there. I feel like I developed skills from it. but I didn't massively enjoy it at any point, let's say, to be
Mm,
honest. And it would have been quite nice to have had something on the table that would have been more fun or better suited to me and more options there.
mm, mm.
Zoe, as Roz says, this doesn't really just seem like it's going to happen, but is it remotely viable or is it just a headline grabber?
So I think Onward, the Onward think tank produces quite a lot of these kind of reports, and they're very well researched, and they often do grab a lot of headlines because they sort of represent the centre right. So they tend to get backing from Conservative MPs. And they tend to have really good research behind them. And I think this is actually how I feel about a lot of what Onward produce is that they actually have identified a lot of problems. Young people are unhappy and they are unskilled and they are unmoored. But it's the solutions they posit tend to be rooted in conservative ideology. And as we're saying, this isn't a straightforward national service, as many of us know that. That is definitely a attention grabbing headline. So people think that we're sort of talking about conscription to the military. Actually, it's a bit more nuanced than that. It's volunteering and just basically getting young people to work for their communities, work to get a sense of work and a sense of responsibility. Those things you think are fairly
The thing
reasonable.
is, I feel like if you framed it in that reasonable way, though, I can see. So, Penny Mordaunt has got a big headline in the Telegraph from talking about this. But if you'd framed it in that reasonable way you've just described it, and you were a Labour MP who said it,
Mm.
it would be Labour MP comes up with woke scheme to give kids a jolly
Mm.
for a year.
Oh yeah, that taxpayers have to foot
Yeah,
the bill
taxpayer
for.
expense
Yeah,
jollies. Yeah.
absolutely. So I think there is definitely a sense of appealing to those conservative voters who feel that young people have lost a sense of patriotism and tradition and respect for their community, respect for their elders. Is this sort of scheme viable? Probably not. They estimate it would cost up to 1.3 billion. We don't even have enough money to stop buildings falling down on our heads.